Hello again. So here we go. Let's dig in a little bit deeper to those two graphs that we talked about earlier, picture graph and a bar graph.
How can you read picture graphs? Think about this question during the lesson. How many hockey teams are in the East Falls League? Let's look at this picture graph to find out. Information you collect is called data. A scaled picture graph, sometimes called a pictograph, uses pictures or symbols to show this information. The scale on the picture graph is the number each picture or symbol represents or stands for. The key on the picture graph explains the scale used in the graph. Look at the graph. What do the two hockey sticks that make an X stand for?
All right, so that is where we would want to always make sure that's one of the first things we're doing when we look at a picture graph is we want to read the title and then we want to read the key so that we know what information is being collected and how to interpret it. So each two hockey sticks equals what? Two teams, right?
They stand for two teams. What does a single hockey stick stand for?
One, right?
It stands for one team. What will you count by? Twos, ones?
Select your answer.
What are you going to have to count by? Would you count by ones and twos, twos and fours, fives and tens? Which one do you think? Let's see. Thinking ones and twos, maybe?
You will count by twos and ones to find the answers. Use the picture graph key. Look at the data for the East Falls League. There are three groups of two hockey sticks and one group of one hockey stick in the East Falls League row. The three groups of two hockey sticks represent 3 times 2 equals 6 teams. The one group of one hockey stick represents 1 times 1 equals 1 team. 6 teams plus 1 team equals 7 teams. There are 7 teams in the East Falls League. How many more teams does the East Falls League have than the South Falls League?
All right, so if we looked at the East Falls and we know we can count by twos and ones, right? 2, 4, 6, and then one more would be 7, right? If you look at the South Falls, they have 2, 4. Okay, you can also kind of look, if you look and we kind of like just drew a line right here, we could just see that there is a 2 and a 1 more. So what's 2 plus 1? Right, you should have your answer. Let's check our work.
Use the picture graph to help you write equations and compare these two rows. The East Falls League has 3 groups of 2 hockey sticks and 1 group of 1 hockey stick. 3 times 2 plus 1 equals 7. The South Falls League has 2 groups of 2 hockey sticks. 2 times 2 equals 4. Now subtract. 7 minus 4 equals 3.
Is that what you got?
The East Falls League has 3 more teams than the South Falls League. What is another way to find out how many more teams the East Falls League has than the South Falls League? Without calculating or writing equations, You can use the picture graph to see that there are 3 more hockey sticks in the East Falls row than in the South Falls row. Now you know how to read a picture graph and analyze and compare the information it shows.
All right, good job. So you should be ready to do our math page together. So you want to make sure that you have your volume 1 math book, and I'm going to share my screen with you on the page that we are going to do. And it always makes me do it 2 times, no matter what. All right, here we go. So we are going to do the front together, and then you guys will do the back on your own, all right? So they talked about the picture graph in the video. We're gonna also look at the bar graph. And I kind of talked to you about a bar graph, but let's just read this part together just to kind of refresh our memory. So a bar graph uses bars to represent and compare information. This bar graph shows the number of goals scored by different players on the hockey team. The scale shows, so here's the scale, shows the number units that they're going to use. So if you look, what did they count by? 0, 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. What did they count by? They counted by 4s. And a lot of times on bar graphs, they're going to do that because it would take a long time to number and draw 20 lines. So this way, it's a little bit faster, but still is a nice way to show and collect the data. So on this bar graph, each horizontal line or grid line represents 2 units, okay? So see how they have that? They have more than just the numbers here. So it goes up by 2s just to help us a little bit more. Every other grid line is labeled 0, 4, 8, and so on. For example, the line halfway between 4 and 8 would represent what? So it's going by 2s. So it would maybe be a little bit easier if you look here. If you said 2, 4, so what would this one represent? 6, then 8, then what? 10, 12, and what would come next? 14, and we've got 16, and we've got 18. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at our bar graph. How many goals in all did Alex and Reggie score? All right, so we need to look at Alex. If we go all the way up and follow that line over, it is right above the 16, which we already labeled what? 18. I always like to look at my graph and to number and write it in actually before I answer them. So let's look at who was the next one? Reggie, and then we'll do the rest. So if we go to Reggie and we go all the way over, Reggie is right at what? Reggie's right at 16. So how many goals in all? Oh, in all, what are we going to do? We're going to add. Did Reggie and Alex score? Well, what's 18 plus 16? Stack it and solve it. Okay, you should have got 8 plus 6 equals what? 14. So you put down the 4, you carry the 1. 1 plus 1 plus 1 equals 3. So they scored 34 goals. All right, let's go backwards though, and let's look again at our next 2 friends. So Cindy, if we look at Cindy and we go over, Cindy has scored how many? Cindy has scored 14. And if we look at Jack and we go all the way over, Jack has scored 8. All right, do you know how? So let's look at this one. Explain how to find how many fewer goals Cindy scored than Alex. All right, well, here's Cindy. and here's Alex. How could you do that? There's a couple ways. Well, since we already figured out the answers in the data, we could just what? If it says how many fewer, we could what? We could subtract it, right? We've got Alex and we've got Cindy. Or we know that each line represents what? What did we count by? 2s, right? So if Cindy's at 14 and we want to get up equal to Alex, we would say 2, 4. And is 18 minus 14 4? Yes. So you could do it either way. I could subtract, or I could count the lines until I got to Alex. Okay? All right, so now we're on to the picture graph. What's the first thing I want you to look at on a picture graph? The what? The key. Right here. I want you to look at the key. And just like on the bar graph, I always tell my friends, count it first, figure out which one each represents, and that's going to help you with your word problems. So here we're trying to find out the hours of light used at a sports center. Number of hour lights are on each week. So in the exercise room, we've got a lot of light bulbs, but we're not just going to count by ones. We have to count by what? 10s. But then look here. There are some that are a half of a light bulb. Well, what's half of 10? 5, right? So let's count by 10s. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. But now we have to add 5 more. So the exercise room has 75 hours that they are on. All right, let's look at the locker room. I don't see any halves here. So that means we can just count by what? 10. Count with me. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. Wow, the locker room's on for a long time, huh? All right, swimming pool, I see both. Count with me. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 55. And then the tennis court, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. If you get in the habit of looking at the key and interpreting and looking and finding out your data before, the word problems are going to be a breeze for you. So if we look at number 3, which area has lights on for exactly 50 hours each week? Well, which one had 50? The tennis court, right? What does the half bulb in the data for the exercise room represent? What is the half for the exercise room? Well, if you don't know, look at the key. What does half of the light bulb represent? It represents what? 5 hours. All right, now let's look at this one. In 1 week, how many more? There's that word. What's how many more mean? Subtract. How many more hours are lights on in the exercise room? Okay, well, we've got exercise room is 75. Than in the swimming pool. So this is our problem. Go ahead and solve it. What do you get? What's 75 minus 55? You should have gotten 20 more hours. All right, guys. So that is how we will look at and interpret bar graphs and picture graphs. So on the back, flip it over. You are going to do all of the back by yourself. We've got our picture graphs and we've got our bar graphs. So you are doing the whole entire thing, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And then 9 and 10 will be your discussion post. Okay? All right, good job and good luck. I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye.